Terry Gilliam thinks of Time Bandits, Brazil, and The Adventures of Baron Munchausen as his trilogy of imagination. Time Bandits tells the child's story, Brazil the adult's, and Munchausen the old man's. Gilliam is also the hero of each. He's Kevin, he's Sam Lowry, and he's the Baron. So what if Kevin from Time Bandits grew up to be Sam Lowry of Brazil, and then in his old age became Baron Munchausen? What if in Time Bandits, the TV show, a final step is taken? For his whole life, across time and across these three selves, Kevin has been unknowingly auditioning for a job as the new Supreme Being. Brazil represents Gilliam's personal nightmare vision of the future, a world where men are slaves to needlessly endless forms and at the absolute mercy of their technologies. Brazil is the world that Evil from Time Bandits would have made if he'd been allowed to.
If I were creating a world, I wouldn't mess about with butterflies and daffodils. I would have started with lasers. 8 o'clock, day one. Sorry.
Near the end of Time Bandits, the Supreme Being reveals that he allowed the bandits to steal the map in order to test his creation, Evil.
You really think I didn't know?
Sir?
I had to have some way of testing my handiwork.
Time Bandits, the TV show, could follow this model. The Supreme Being wasn't just testing Evil. That was just phase one. And at the very end of Time Bandits, we see Kevin returned home, only to find his house burned down and his parents, in the midst of touching a bit of concentrated evil, somehow lodged in their toaster.
Mom! Dad! It's evil! Don't touch it!
How did it get there? We could pick up the story here and suggest that the Supreme Being himself put the bit of evil in the toaster to begin the second phase of his test, humanity itself. What will the human part of his creation do when a very small bit of evil is added to the world? Time Bandits, the TV show, could pick up at exactly the moment the movie ended. We'd zoom back down to Earth, to Kevin, just after his parents blew up, as he's walking through the rubble toward the exploded toaster and its smoking block of evil. But the block is no longer there. In its place, and stepping out of the smoke, is David Warner, Evil himself. Warner takes Kevin's Polaroids and heads for the road where his new assistant, a very young Mr. Kurtzman, pulls up in a black car. As Kurtzman steps out to open the door, Warner hands the Polaroids to him. Young Kevin sees this, knows Mr. Kurtzman has them. With Evil now hard at work on lasers and computers and cell phones, Kevin's world transforms rapidly, quickly becomes the world of Brazil. We could see Kevin adopted by Catherine Helmond, who immediately changes his name. I've always longed to have a boy not named Kevin. How about Sam? We could see Kevin and Sam take a job with Mr. Kurtzman at the ministry as one of those vested boys, delivering forms around the office, hoping to find out where his photo of the map is. This continues until he's the Sam Lowry we know in Brazil. All along he's kept working at the ministry in the hopes that he'll one day discover where Mr. Kurtzman has hidden his Polaroid. But eventually, Sam falls in love, and finally gives in to his feelings for Jill Layton, and after nearly escaping with her, ends up in the torture chamber. He goes insane, and yet remains blissfully dreaming of his life with Jill on a small farm in the country. It's here, in the dream, that the Supreme Being makes his return. He blames Kevin, Sam for the whole thing. Kevin brought the evil back with him, and now look what's become of the earth. It is therefore, the Supreme Being says, Sam's responsibility to fix it. Fix it? How can I fix it? Sam asks. But the Supreme Being provides no answers, only flashes his eyes and returns Sam back to the world. Old, white-bearded Jonathan Pryce wakes from his insanity on a heap of bodies in a room literally filled with similar torture victims in a bleak, bleak hospital. After narrowly avoiding old Michael Palin, his former friend and later torturer, who's still hard at work, Sam escapes the hospital. He has a mission now. He has to unruin the world. But how can he possibly do that? If he could find the Polaroid, he could use it to travel back to his old bedroom and stop himself from ever going with the bandits in the first place. There's only one man who can help Sam get the Polaroid from Mr. Kurtzman, Robert De Niro's Harry Tuttle. With the postcard finally in hand, Sam dons a suit of armor and mounts a horse and heads off to find the portal back to his old bedroom wardrobe. We see him racing down the bleak streets of Brazil, pursued by old Michael Palin and Mr. Kurtzman and guards. A door blinks open. He and the horse leap into it. And suddenly, Sam on the horse, Kevin himself as a 70-year-old man, charges through the wardrobe into his old bedroom and gazes down at his 11-year-old self. He lifts his visor and attempts to lay out a mission that his younger self can't possibly yet understand. In a few moments, a band of very small international criminals is going to arrive, he begins. Don't go with them. Sam wants to tell his younger self more, but his horse is bucking and charging about, and suddenly bolts off into a pretty forest. And it's here, in the medieval country that Sam the Knight gallops into, where we see the initial inklings that he's about to embark on the first of his fantastical, impossible adventures as Baron Munchausen. Possibly we leave that part of the story untold, or perhaps revisit it much, much later, as Kevin Sam Munchausen discovers that all along he's been auditioning for the job as the next Supreme Being. At any rate, the dwarves arrive as before, and episode 1 ends with young Kevin reluctantly following the dwarves down the portal hallway in his room, wondering if he should jump or heed the advice of the knight on the horse. Kevin's uncertainty keeps him right where he is, and as the dwarves push and push the wall further and further down the hall, everything begins to go white. In Time Bandits the movie, Kevin follows them into the portal. In Time Bandits the TV show, Kevin's resistance creates a new situation. He's in the portal, but he won't go through it, and neither can the bandits. And suddenly they find themselves stuck in an all-white room. Randall, perhaps now played by Warwick Davis, tells Kevin that he just broke the portal, and now they'll never get out. They'll be stuck forever here in a place called the Nowhere of Nothingness. Inside the doorless room, there's a white box on a white table. Kevin lifts it. As he does, the entire room shakes violently, and everyone is thrown to the floor. Kevin drops the box. Everything stills. He gives the box a small push, and he and the dwarves all topple again to the floor, as though the rug has been ripped out from beneath them. As it turns out, they're not only in the room, but inside the box. We end the episode here, and in episode 2, we'll see how they make their impossible escape from the Nowhere of Nothingness, and begin their all new journey through time.